Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by one of our admins, and the message reads like this. Morning, Brother Nashi. How are you? Please post for me. The Johnsons had done very well for themselves. They had created what we can say it is generational wealth for themselves and also for future generations to come. I met Travis one day when I was busy pushing my hustle. I was into buying and selling personal care products, his and hers, oils, bath salts, bubble bath creams, deodorants, you name it. So I was in a bank queue and I wanted to deposit money for the personal care order so that my products will be sent by courier guy. A man was behind me in the queue and he complimented me that I smelled really nice. I politely thanked him. He introduced himself as Travis. I told him that I sold personal care products and gave him my flyer should he be interested in making a purchase in the foreseeable future. I made my transaction and left the banking hall. Weeks later, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Travis on the other end of the line, and he asked if I could meet up with him in one of the nearby malls as he wanted to make a purchase. I replied that it will not be an issue. He just had to say where and what time he will be available, and I'll be able to go and meet up with him. True to his word, Travis came and bought personal care products. In fact, he bought everything that I had on me. It was such a huge purchase, so much that even I did not make another sale during the month. It was going to be okay because it was such a huge sale. Travis made it a habit to buy personal products from me. He was such a regular customer, and every time he called, I knew that he needed, and I would pack his things accordingly. Travis had opened to me that he lived on a farm, and his whole life had been at the farm. He had 5 brothers, and that made them 6 brothers in total. We slowly became friends, and I won't lie, I slowly started enjoying Travis' company. He was a soft-spoken guy and had time to listen to all of my silly jokes. Our friendship blossomed into something more. We began seeing each other, and he said he would not rush me into anything, but we would move at a pace that I was more comfortable with. That worked well for me. Travis and I started cohabitating together. I moved into his flat and we had a modest life. It was as if it was a prayer that God had answered. I do not know how Mr. Johnson, who was Travis's father, got wind that his son was now staying with me. Mr. Johnson was so furious such a thing had happened. All this Travis and I had heard through the grapevine when Mason, his big brother, visited us at our place. He said, "Father is not too happy about your arrangement." I overheard Mason telling Travis, "One day, as I was doing my laundry, I heard people screaming on top of their vehicles. There was a convoy at our flat, a whole convoy of luxurious cars. Maybe it was the landlord, so I thought, who had came with some contractors because the whole block was having problems with water. So naturally, I thought that maybe this was the case. I sighed. People have nothing to do. Let me get on with my business before the rains start pouring down again." Well, the meteorological services had predicted that there was going to be a heavy downpour, so I did not want the laundry to pile up. Travis was such a neat freak. I heard a loud knock on the door, and there was a man all clad in expensive clothing at our door. I greeted him, and he asked if Travis was home. I replied that he was taking a shower and he should come until he finished taking a bath. I offered the man some juice and he politely declined. "Oh, you must be Jane," he said, stretching his hand. And I said, "Yes, yes, yes, yes," I replied. He then said, "Travis did well by choosing you," he said, smiling, showing his perfect white teeth. "Who was this man? How did he know about me?" Travis better get out of the bathroom fast because the whole scenario was starting to feel very awkward. It seemed like an eternity, and Travis finally got out of the bathroom. Then Travis asked, "How did you know that I am here?" Then the father said, "Is that how you greet your own father? Show me some manners, boy. I missed you, my son." Then Travis apologized to the man. So this was Travis's father. How come he did not talk about his father so often? Travis introduced me to his father, and after the formalities were done, I then excused myself and I went into the kitchen to prepare some food for the guests. Mr. Johnson and Travis had a lengthy discussion. I could not overhear what they were talking about, but it seemed like it was something that was really important. I had even tried to eavesdrop, but to no avail at all, and I feared that maybe I was going to get caught trying to listen to their conversation. I finished cooking and lunch was served. After lunch was served, Mr. Johnson bade us farewell and went his way. After Mr. Johnson had left, Travis explained to me that we will be going to live on the farm. But how? But why? I knew how much Travis wanted to be in the city. So why had he had a change of heart just like that? It just did not make sense to me. I was left with a lot of unanswered questions that I did not have answers to. But before moving to the farm, Mr. Johnson had instructed Travis to do the correct procedure by me. I heard through Travis that he was not too keen on me and Travis staying together in this way. He just could not allow it. So Esley, his uncles, had been called and met with my family, and then the lobola was paid and all the traditional rites observed. Travis and I became a married couple, husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. After the traditional rites had been done, we were going to live on the farm, so we just packed our clothes and left for the farm. A driver had been sent to fetch us. A whole driver. We arrived at the farm and I was welcomed with open arms. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson had even organized a party for me to welcome me properly as the bride in the family, to welcome me as a member of the family. Travis came from a family that had money. He came from money, but he had been modest about it. Not once did I even think that they owned such a big farm. Not only was it big, it was a commercial farm. Their herd of cows, one could not even count in a day and finish it. Travis had told me that when they do a head count of the cattle, they would have to rope in some people to help. There were all sorts of domestic animals at the farm and they were in their numbers. They even owned horses. A black man owning all of these horses, a lot of them. To say that they were rich, it was such an understatement. They were wealthy. 2 years lapsed and we were still staying at the farm. However, I felt so empty inside because in the 2 years that we were together, we had failed to conceive. I was not falling pregnant. It was just not happening, despite the fact that I was not on any birth control method. The issue was causing endless fights between me and Travis. We had even consulted after some obstetricians and even went to the men. We went to the men's clinic, but to no avail. When the fight happened, I would ride on a horse, breathing in some fresh air around the farm. However, I noticed that none of his elder brothers had children as well. Did it mean that the whole family was important? They could not make their wives to fall pregnant. Travis had 3 older brothers who were married, but they had no kids at all. No cry of a child was ever heard on that farm. Did Mr. and Mrs. Johnson not want grandkids who would run around the farm, keeping them busy? But there was one thing that puzzled me at the farm. I had tried asking my sisters-in-law and brothers-in-law about the issue, but no one seemed to have a straight answer. It was forbidden to milk the cows, whereas still drink the milk. But why such a waste? I thought that when you are living on the farm, at least you'll be eating from what the cows will be giving you. I mean, like wholesome food, unlike all of the processed meat that we were eating in the city. But they just didn't want that. One night, Travis and I had a huge fight, and I decided to cool off by taking a walk at night. Nothing will befall me, as the farm had a perimeter fence. Let me just clear my head a little bit, I said. What made me curious was that I saw Mr. and Mrs. Johnson in the kraal in the middle of the night. The cattle were drinking something that the mother and the father was giving to them. But why would cattle be fed at night? In the middle of the night, they had such huge pastures that had the capacity to cater for such a large herd. My father-in-law seemed to be pouring something from a can. I thought to myself that it is better that I play detective to see what exactly was transpiring. I was curious to know what was inside the can. It had some stuff in it. The can had some stuff in it, but what was it? What was it that they were feeding to the cattle through the thick of the night? Let me run to the house and collect a lamp so that I could see properly. This is what I whispered to myself. I went back to the house, and when I came back to the kraal, the can was nowhere to be found. I am sure of what I saw. But where had it gone to? Besides, I had hid it, and I am positive that my father-in-law and my mother-in-law had not seen me. My curiosity was aroused. What was being fed to the cattle? Why at night? Travis went to a seminar, and I smuggled my long-time friend at the farm without the knowledge of anyone, whom I'll call Vivi. Vivi was a laboratory scientist. I hid her in the house. Vivi and I had a mission, but the mission was to be carried out at night. When it was night time, we tiptoed our way to the kraal, and when mother and father had done giving the cattle whatever that was in the can, Vivi collected the samples and went to the lab to test whatever that was in the can. Vivi called me after 2 days, saying that she wanted to see me and this was urgent. She said that I must sit down, for what she was about to tell me will send the shockwaves into my life. She said, I ran the tests to find out what the things in the can were, and she said, what surprises me is that this stuff, it contains human DNA, Vivi said. And I said, explain to me in simple terms, Vivi. I am not understanding your jargon. And then Vivi said, well, at first I could not even believe it myself. The first test, I was shocked. I even ran the second test. The third test, I was sure this is semen, human one. They are feeding these cows with semen. What? I gasped for air. What was she trying to say? How was it even possible? Where were they getting it from? And why would they even want to give their own cattle human sperms? How were the two linked? Did they practice dark magic? How were they even getting the semen? Did it meant that us being unable to conceive was caused by all of this? Was it black magic that was being practiced? Was Travis shooting blanks? Is that why they never asked why we did not have any children? I knew the battle would be finished on my knees. My God had never failed me. I resorted to ask God to reveal what was happening at the farm. One night, as I was deep in prayer, I had a knock on the door. It was the middle of the night. No one ever came to my room at that time. It was Mr. and Mrs. Johnson who bluntly told me that my prayers were disturbing their peace. Oh, this was quite surprising. I knew the source of our barrenness. Mother and father, they were practicing dark magic on their sons by feeding the herd with human sperms. So the cattle were being fed with the vitamins from the sperms of their own sons who were our husbands. No wonder they had such a huge head. The farm was now unlivable as there were almost fights on a daily basis. Whenever I would try to pray, I would actually hear people walking outside. I knew I was not fighting against flesh, but against the principalities. We moved away from the farm, and my father and my mother-in-law did not protest against the move. Before the incident, moving away from the farm was something unheard of. Even Travis's older brother also moved away from the farm. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson's wealth started diminishing. It's like they never had any money. 9 months later, to my surprise, Travis and I, we were blessed with bouncy twin girls. All that I want to say is that God has to be given all the glory. What I saw on that farm, it was quite surprising and quite scary. Sometimes when you see these families that are ultra rich, at least you need to do some investigations. But when you are just a poor girl, you think that once you get married to this wealthy family, then it is going to solve all of your problems. But as for me, getting married to this family, if I didn't go down on my knees, if I didn't pray, maybe I was never going to be able to have a baby. I was the one who broke these generational curses, because even my sister-in-laws, they all fell pregnant and they are happy about it. We now go to the same church. We do not have the same money, like our husbands do not have the same money that they used to have before, but we are fine with what we have. We just say, to God be the glory. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our admins. Strange things do happen in this world.